So to start off, I will just have you guys introduce yourself, let everybody know what you're studying here, kind of where you came from, your background, brief, your elevator pitch.
Okay. I'm Eamon Wilson. I'm an MPP here. We're all second years except for Sean, who's at yes. So I'm originally from New Mexico. I did my undergrad in poli-sci at UCLA. And I went back home and worked for a year at Los Alamos National Laboratory before I then came to GPS. I'm now focusing on business and regulation as well as program design and evaluation. But I originally came in as a security policy, and I still have 200 business cards that say that. But so it's really easy to move around, change your mind here, because you have your Common Core classes, tons of electives to choose from. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Brenna McKee. I'm a second year MIA. I went to undergrad in Florida, studied history and IR. My language is Spanish, luckily, so I got to test out of Spanish here. Here I'm studying international politics, and my regional focus is Latin America. Prior to coming here, I was in Vietnam for a year teaching English, and I don't know what else.
Okay.
That's for you. Okay, yeah.
My name is Victoria Holden. I'm also a second year Masters of International Affairs student. My regional focus is Latin America, and I'm focused in international development and nonprofit management. Prior to coming to GPS, I worked with Prudential Financial and Oakland Unified School District, mainly within business analysis roles. And over the summer, I was in Uganda with a very small organization.
Hi, I'm Sean Barner. I'm a MAS-IA student part-time. So this is my second year of participating in the MAS-IA program. I did my undergraduate degree at Georgia State University in political science. Prior to starting here at GPS, I did 8 years in the Marine Corps and currently have served 6 years in the Navy as a surface warfare officer. Currently, I'm working part-time over at the University of San Diego, teaching Navy officer candidates to navigate ships and how to perform naval operations at sea. So full-time work and also completing part-time here at GPS.
Thank you. So for my first question, which class was most challenging in your first year, and what did you learn? So we'll start with David.
Yeah. So as poli-sci, as an undergrad, I went out of my way to avoid math, econ, all that stuff. So the econ class here was extremely difficult right off the bat. You come here, and then the two quantitative. Well, the first quantitative wasn't too bad. It was mostly statistics, probability, and stuff like that. But once you get into econometric modeling and statistical analysis, then those are two of the hardest classes I've ever taken. But they also, I mean, depending, you can do with them what you want. You can really pursue the quantitative angle of this school, or you can just use it as, it kind of underlies every other class you're going to take. You're always going to be reading regressions. It's important to understand statistics, to understand the effect that a program has numerically. And your supply and demand curves will pop up everywhere. So two of the hardest classes, but also definitely two of the best classes and two of the most important classes that I still use. And actually it was because I was, oh, hey, I'm better at this, and I assumed that I decided to change my focus.
I would second what Eamon said, except QM1 was extremely hard for me. I was a history major undergrad. I haven't taken math since high school. I didn't even take stats when I was in high school, so I was way out of my depth, but I had a good study group, and I got through it. You will too.
Just continuing on, yeah, definitely managerial economics was a huge struggle for me, and quantitative methods 3. Economics, I think I really appreciate being inside of that class because it's such necessary information for afterwards and provided a great base. And quantitative methods is a lot closer to my heart. It's something that I want to continue with. And it was challenging because it pushed me to think much deeper than I ever have in statistics. And as Eamon said, the skills that I learned in understanding regressions have really helped me, even just within this summer, where I was pushed for our microfinance institution to read paper after paper of doctoral students about the best methods within microinsurance was really helpful.
For me, I jumped into my career track a lot sooner. So my career track was security of Southeast Asia and Pacific. And my first class in my China career track was Chinese security and technology. And that was pretty difficult. And the professor for that class was Professor Chung, Professor Tai Ming Chung. And he started with a disclaimer: you're more confused after the end of this class than you're on the right track. Because it's definitely a quagmire, and you realize that what you thought you knew about China, you had no idea prior to starting that class. So that's pretty difficult for me, but we all survived. It was a good class.
The next question is for Eamon and Victoria. What class are you looking forward to most this year?
So the big class for my MPP track is program design and evaluation, and the class I'm really looking forward to is also that. And I think that's when you really bring everything together, your statistics, your econ, also all the memo writing and policy making, that's exactly it. You design a program or a project, something that will either policy related or to benefit some situation, and then evaluating. And that's a really marketable skill, which is what the school's about. It's about getting you hired. It's a professional school. And I'm really looking forward to that. And just in general, in your second year, you're going to get to smaller classes, more seminar style, that might have 10, 15 people in it. And that just makes it so much easier to communicate, speak up in class. You learn so much more, interact more with the professor. So in general, that's what I'm looking forward to.
I would say you can tell if you're right for this program. Before I came here, as I was looking through the catalog, it was really difficult for me to choose which classes I wanted to take, because I wanted to take them all, and I still feel that way. But I would say that I'm most excited for in future taking designing field experiments. It's actually a doctorate level class that they open up to GPS students as long as you follow the quantitative methods track. It's with Craig McIntosh, which if you do not know who he is, please look him up. He is maybe just a reason alone to come to this school with how brilliant he is. By the end of the class, you have a full experiment that you can show to your employers, which I think is within this realm of like field experiments. You're not going to find that in a lot of master's programs. And other classes that I would just shout out are, we're taking strategy and negotiation right now, and that class is so fun and very useful. We have negotiations all the time, which you interact with on a daily basis, that even outside of your job, you should be really good at when you're getting a house. And right now we're acting as cartographers and taking a GIS class, which is really fun and also makes you extremely marketable after the degree is done.
And the next question is for Victoria and Brenna. In what ways have you utilized career services, or do you plan to utilize them in the coming year?
So much. Our career services team is amazing. We have three people who specialize in different things. So Stephanie specializes in federal government, and she can help with all the Robertson Fellow applications and stuff. And she helped, I'm sure Victoria will talk more about that, but she sends out daily emails about U.S. government openings. I mostly go to David because he is more into the international development sector and just more private sector in general, I think. And he helped me find my internship, which was at a lobbying firm this summer. So I was in DC. David checked my resume, checked my cover letter. He helped me get in contact with my employer. He helped me prep for my interview. And now he's helping me prep for job interviews, and he's just super friendly and welcoming and warm, and I find that super helpful when prepping for things like scary things that are scary, like job application.
Ditto to Brenna. I don't know if you know, but the career services offices are 10 feet away from us. They're with us day in and day out. Brenna uses a first name basis with them because they're our friends and they're constantly checking on us, sending us emails. And that access doesn't end with this program. In 2 years, if I find myself in struggles, then I can still contact them. And that's a huge benefit to this program. Last year, I spoke to the advisors when it came to opening myself up to different fields. They brought in regular speakers. Another big benefit of this program is if you're going into a nonprofit realm, which wouldn't regularly be open to you because it's difficult to afford those kinds of summer internships, then you can get a stipend from the school. And so I was talking back and forth with career services about that. And in my case, I was all set to go to Mozambique with the State Department and everything was ready to go. And then at the very last moment in June, I wasn't able to go anymore. And so I had to very quickly find a different internship opportunity. And so that's where career services stepped in and found me something that fit me perfectly and kept that dialogue going. And as for the upcoming year, I would say that I'm already working with career services on different events that we're going to hold together. And again, with all of those scary situations that, like, even though I have professional experience and I am quite comfortable with a cover letter, it's really great to have a second set of eyes that are always ready for you to say, yes, this looks great, send it off.
My next question is for Brenna and Sean. Do you have any financial support from campus or external funding support? And if so, what kind?
Yes. So my funding is all external. I'm a member of a graduate education program with the United States Navy that's funding my graduate expenses up to $40,000. So for my degree plan, that's going to cover a majority of it. There's a little bit that's that either I'm going to pay for myself, or if I have to find the time to do the paperwork, maybe tap into my GI Bill. But the options are there. But about 95% of my education is funded from external sources.
I am not that lucky. I had to apply for FAFSA last year, so I got need-based loans. And I also had a small merit-based scholarship from the department, from GPS. But this year, I get to be employed by the school as a writing TA. So basically, it's a 50% position, which means I work 50% of full time. So I work 20 hours a week, and I make something like $20 an hour, just pay. But it also allows me to get tuition remission. So the whole tuition that I would normally pay has just been covered by that position because I'm employed by the school. So basically all I have to pay this year is a couple $1,000s in fees because it's tuition and fees. And so last year I had to work outside of school, and I vigorously recommend against it if you can get employment with the school. Yeah.
And they cover your health insurance, right?
They do. They cover USHIP, which is like the school you can get all kinds of health coverage on campus. Question.
How about housing?
Housing, they don't cover housing, but if you get on-campus housing, it's not subsidized, they say, but it's significantly cheaper than anything you would find in La Jolla. For instance, OMS, which is one of the biggest crowd housing, they cost about $600 a month, and when I was living off campus, I was paying like $850.
So with the job, so it's $20 an hour, 20 hours a week, and then the total of the 25,000, like the fee total, that's covered through the remission, you're saying?
The tuition remission, yeah.
It would be the line on there that says tuition.
Right, the tuition section is paid, the fees are
campus
sold.
fees and whatnot.
Yeah, but maybe you can get merit-based state cover that, or pay it out of your salary from the $20 an hour.
if I could jump in with it, it doesn't have to be through GPS either. GPS has relatively few student positions, but you can go to the poli-sci department. Yeah, so I currently have a poli-sci readership, and I get the same deal. I get tuition admission. I get 15 an hour as a reader, but it's still a great deal. I would highly recommend it.
The final question I have for you guys is for Victoria. Do you plan to be involved in any conferences, meetings, or collaborations outside of GPS this year?
So I, through my internship, have stayed in contact with the person in charge of that organization. He's currently a doctor, doing his doctorate at University of West Virginia. And so I am going to potentially be helping him with a paper based off of some work that we did over the summer and continuing that partnership, as well as a few other GPS students and myself, including Brenna, are going to be doing a human trafficking conference in February. A couple of our classmates went to Harvard last year and really learned a lot from their conference and started talking to them about doing it at GPS this year. So we're working on that as well with social impact, which is on campus. So I'm really excited to be working on those and invite you to come in February.
Can I contribute to that?
Yeah.
I'm one of the clubs, we have numerous clubs at GPS, and I'm a part of the journal. We publish an annual scholarly journal here, and every year we send 2 members, an incoming member and an old member, to Princeton for their annual review of their journal. And basically all the editors in chiefs go and learn about how Princeton does it, basically. And it's really great. You get to meet all these editors from all across the country. There's like students from American, from Michigan, Texas, etc. And the great thing about GPS is that career services will fund your conference travel costs. So up to $400, $500. That includes flights, trains, Ubers, hotels, whatever you need.
All right. Those are all the questions that I have for the panel. Oh, we have a
Question from online about the clubs as well. Can you talk about some of the clubs relevant to the MPP, energy and policy, or even just the MPP?
So actually just this year, so this is the first year, last year was the first year we offered the MPP class. And Gabby, one of the MPP students, she wanted to do exactly that, start a club that was more directly relevant to MPPs. So it's called the Public Policy Series, and they do. So last year their big event was a fundraiser to donate supplies to a refugee camp in Tijuana, and so that they had just started. That was their only event they had, but it was smashing success. As far as I'm sure there's some environmental clubs. There's a club for anything.
There's an environment club. Net Impact is about environment, and they do so many things. It's maybe Victoria, she's in charge of Go GPS, which is like the umbrella club organization. She could probably tell you more.
Yeah, Net Impact actually just had an event today where all the students could come and talk about issues that they're interested in with our professors. Last year they also had an event where we went to a water desalination plant, which was really interesting. But I don't think any of us are on that club's board, so we can't give as much information. Apologies.
So we do have, just in addition, we do have about 16 different student groups here at GPS. So I always tell people there's going to be more clubs and organizations and things to do outside of class than you'll ever have time to do, which I'm sure you guys agree with. So there's definitely plenty of opportunities to get involved outside of class as well. So if anybody here has any questions for the panel as well. Start over here, yeah.
Hi. My question is for the MPP student. I forgot your name. Eamon. I'm interested in enrolling in the energy and environmental policy track. I understand, as you said, the program started last year. What brought you to this new program that hasn't had a track record for you to be in it? It's my first question. And then the second question is, just with anything new, there are pros and cons. What would be your pros and your cons?
So I really wanted to do an MPP, that's all I knew, but I also wanted to do international politics. So I was looking around for that, and there's maybe 2 other schools that have an international focused MPP program. And I did my undergrad in LA. I really wanted to come back to Southern California, so it was perfect. It just fell into my lap. As far as being a brand new program, all the professors are great. I would say that we have, they're intelligent. They know what they're talking about. They're good professors. The classes themselves were like, oh, maybe we already talked about this. It might have been repetitive here, or maybe we don't need to have this section, something like that. But we gave them feedback. Now the class this year is much bigger. They're going to give their own feedback. But on the whole, it was, I learned a lot, and I think there's really no major downsides to the fact that it's brand new.
No, I'll just add something really quick to that too, that we, in our Master of International Affairs degree, historically there was a focus, one of the concentration areas was public policy. So while the degree program is new, a lot of the classes had already existed under the MIA public policy program. So we basically took that concentration and created a full degree out of it. So a lot of the classes are new, but some of it has been around for a while as well.
Actually, just in general, you share the common pool of classes with everyone in the school. So you have MPPs, we have maybe 4 different core classes. Besides that, every class I'm going to take my 2 years here are going to be with other MIA people. So you're using the same professors, you're with the same classmates. So it doesn't feel outrageously different as a new program.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Emily. I'm a third year here at undergrad, and I have a question for all of y'all. So, as I mentioned before, you all had some sort of work experience before attending to the school. I guess my question as undergrad is that how do y'all feel like your work experience has what are the benefits of having that experience prior to coming to graduate school? And how do you see yourself different from people or from students just directly go to master schools? I guess that's my concern of it. Yeah.
I look at that and I kind of lean on the experiences I've had so far in the Navy in different places in the world, for example, South China Sea. And I take the experiences that I've had there and I kind of think of when I was there, how did I feel about what I was experiencing at the time? And moving forward, looking at coursework, looking at some of the different things that the Chinese government is currently doing, it's kind of like, that's why that is happening. So it's kind of like an epiphany moment. It's like, what I was experiencing at the time, this is why. I don't really think there is a particular advantage to that, but it does definitely help having the experience already and kind of using that practical application and applying it to my studies now. So for me personally, that's the one advantage to it. I don't think having that experience will disadvantage you, or not having that would disadvantage you at all.
I would agree with Sean. I think that as I go through my experience, there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs in my prior work where things have gone wrong, and this program has brought some language to that and theory as to what I should be doing in the future, especially with Oakland Unified and other places that I've worked where they haven't had as much process and procedure. You learn how important it is to have that base layer underneath you. I would say that looking at the advantages of either end, having that prior work experience and being able to bring that initiative into this program and be a little bit more excited about school because you've been out of it for some time does have its advantages. But our friends in the BA MIA program, we learn from them as much as they do with us in our work experience. Like they have already been in school, so they can move from one program to the next, so they can move right into this. Whereas I know that I had 2 months where I was readjusting. I was very used to having my free weekends where I just kind of go wherever I wanted, and was used to kind of having a more regular sleep schedule and not spending all of my time reading. So there's definitely advantages in both ways. And I think that one of the biggest things for you as a VA MIA student, you get to talk to professionals even before you exit. So you get to pull from your knowledge pool that's right here.
Sorry, I know you don't need like 9 answers, but I would echo what both of them said. One of my favorite parts of coming to this school is having people like Sean in our classes who are we have a lot of military personnel or ex-military personnel in our classes. There's so much, I feel like I know a lot of textbook information because I did have 1 year working that wasn't school, but 1 year wasn't a lot. And I know so much about the theory. I'm like, don't feed me more theory. Like, I'm so tired of it. And then you have people like Sean who come in and they're like, and they just apply it to they just apply whatever theory we've just learned to conflict in the South China Sea, conflict in the Middle East. Like, here's what's happening in Somalia. Here's why the civil war in Yemen is going on. And you're just like, there's a civil war in Yemen? Why don't I know about this? So you're going to be advantaged, like Victoria said, because you're in school already. You don't have to adjust to it. But you're going to be maybe disadvantaged in the work experience, but what you're disadvantaged in, you'll gain back in returns on having experienced classmates. Thank you. Yeah.
So as far as the quantitative methods go, what is the econometric software that you guys use? And are there any online resources that I can start using now in my 3rd year to, I guess,
STATA.
Stata's only?
It's called STATA, S-T-A-T-A. That's the program you use in all the quantitative classes.
And there's a 3rd one, or is it just 1 and 2?
Outside of that, it's not quantitative methods. We use ArcGIS to build our maps, which within this class, later on within the program, you then work in conjunction with Stata.
Okay.
I think in big data, they also use R, right? Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to take big data. There are 4 QM courses. By the 4th one, you'll be a pro at Stata. If you're not interested in following the QM track, a lot of people take big data instead. And so then you'll have to learn R.
Only the first 2 are required for all students. The 3rd one's required for some of the tracks. And I don't think that the 4th one's required for any of the tracks. It's optional for anybody then, so.
But it's so much fun.
Just want to add the QM series is not required for them.
Oh yeah, the QM series is not required for the MAS students. You can take those classes as electives, but it's not required. Any other questions for the panel? Back there.
I'll try to speak up, but let me know if you can't hear me. So I'm also interested in the BA MIA program, and like a lot of you guys mentioned, math is not a strong suit. So I was wondering, like after the 2 quantitative methods, like classes that are required, how like math focused are the other courses levels?
You're going to have to read regression tables in every single class, but you're not necessarily going to have to run regressions in every single class.
So you have to know what it is.
You'll learn that in terms two no matter what.
Yeah,
So you'll already have that.
they'll drill it into you. Not very.
Sorry? Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Good point.
So if you're not really, I don't know, as experienced with math, or like it's not your strong suit, sorry. If math is not your strong suit, then you have prep, which is about a month and a half before the program officially starts. For people that would like it, it goes over a math review. It's called Math Camp, and then you have a start to quantitative methods and economics. I would really recommend economics beforehand, because I had taken economics class, just one in the past, macroeconomics. They said I didn't have to do it, but I really regretted not being inside of there, because once you're inside of the program, because we're on a quarter system, it moves so quickly that that prep time enables you to kind of slowly get back into it and open the books again. And I would say, like, there are other people in the program that are really not interested in quantitative methods, and so there are classes for you that after you've covered your baseline and are able to at least enter into a discussion and be able to talk with experts, you can then transition over to classes that are more focused on literature theory. Like if you look at the classes that that are available. Like I'm taking a class with Jesse Driscoll called Geopolitics, Insurgency, and Weak States. And we do a bit of game theory, but other than that, there's no math. It's all reading. So it is there for you. But I think that one of the benefits of the program is that they do put the emphasis so that way, even though it's a bit scary, it's a really useful tool.
Yeah, you'll be surprised by how much you learn, by how much you retain too. That being said, though, I jokingly call it conversational statistics. Like, you know, at this point, it's been over a year. Like, I probably can't recreate a lot of what I did in the Q&A series, but just being able to talk about and recognizing patterns and being able to incorporate that into your vocabulary, I think that goes a really long way. And you will use that kind of thing in a lot of your classes.
And one more question. You mentioned that in the second year of your program, like, you're excited because it's going to be more like seminar type with like very long classes. What about like the first year? Like the classes?
Depends on your language requirement. If you're required to take all 6 quarters of a language, I don't recommend taking 5 classes. And your first 2 quarters, you have 3 core classes. Or first 3 quarters, you have 3 core classes. So your language will be your 4th. If you can test out of your language, then you can take electives right away. So my first quarter here, I took Politics of Economic Inequality, which sounds like a politics class, but it was an economics class, which I found out 3 weeks into the program. But it was really interesting. I'm really glad I took it. And I didn't have to take, like I said, I didn't have to take Spanish. So that was like unique to people who test out of their language.
But as far as class size, all the core classes, you're in an auditorium and it's 100 some people. It tapers off pretty quick after that. Let's say average size is 20 to 30. And then it's only the more specialized classes and the ones that are at like 6 at night where you'll get that nice seminar feel.
We have TAs in those classes. Yeah, right.
We have 3 TAs for all of the core classes. So if you need help. Yeah.
I don't think that I heard you say that you did your undergrad here at UCSD, is that right?
Correct.
So you guys may not be able to answer this question, but I'll just ask it in case. The undergraduate political science quantitative course, probably 30, which is statistical analysis. I mean, they use SPSS rather than Stato, which there's probably there's a certain learning curve to that. But are any of you familiar with with Poly 30 here at UCSD?
I've heard that the Econ 120 series, econometrics, is pretty close to the quantitative methods here. I don't know.
From
previous students.
I've heard something similar, but I haven't taken it, so I don't know for sure. But yeah,
I'm not sure.
Something along those lines. I don't know. Yeah.
For that language requirement that you talked about, the 6 classes, are you talking like people take that as a grad student or it was part of their undergrad?
It depends. So if you took a language in your undergrad, then typically you can waive out of it. So if you took, 4 semester courses or 6 quarter courses worth of high-level Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Southeast Asian language such as Vietnamese or Indonesian, you can waive out. But Victoria majored in French, not a GPS language, so she's taking 6 courses of Spanish, starting from the bottom to the top.
Or be an MPP and you don't have to.
Or be an MPP.
all the way in the back there.
I have 2 questions for you. So I'm interested in applying to the MIA program or MIA program. And I was curious if you have access to the research center GPS and can use them. And then my other question is, San Diego is not really known for international relations, and I'm just curious why you chose San Diego, maybe opposed to like New York. Sorry, I didn't hear the first time. So, research centers.
So as for the research centers, personally, I do not. I think that we're going to be using it through our strategy and negotiation class. They have resources for us in our case studies that we're going to be doing. They have also a GIS portion of the library that has a librarian available to help us with our work there. And
it's really helpful.
yeah, it's very.
But no, typically we don't use the research centers. Her second question was
about being in San Diego, yes. And I would say that what I've heard from the GPS alumni that I've spoken to is that it does differentiate you in a way, because like you tend to get like the same resumes from people in the same region. So you have that aspect, and also you have the Pacific focus, which I think is a really huge benefit that you have here, as well as I would say that in a way, I think it's really beneficial if you're planning on living in DC for the rest of your life to at least like come see California for some amount of time. And because GPS, this question comes up so often, they put in so much effort to make sure that that is not a problem for the students, because obviously if it was, then that would hurt people coming into the school. So they make sure that they have different treks where they bring us to Washington, D.C. and to New York for us to look around at different universities and talk with GPS alumni. I would also say that GPS has connected me with alumni that have been in town as well. So I would argue that it may seem counterintuitive, but I think that there's a lot of benefits to being here.
I would also say that a lot of us end up not going into your typical State Department FSO jobs, but rather government relations at Tesla, or public policy in Los Angeles, or
Project Concern International.
Like we had like 30 interns in DC this summer though. So like if you want to be there, you can be there. It's surprisingly not that difficult.
Oh, okay. And one more thing to add is that that GPS, I think that they're going to be continuing it in the spring semester of your second year. You can spend that time in DC. So if you are set into going into that region, then you can already be there in advance if that's a concern.
Thank you.
Also in that.
No, you can go right here.
Yeah. Any of you plan to go into PhD after work for a couple of years? Or you know with school? Like,
For planning on starting a PhD.
Yeah.
If I wasn't still connected to, if I still didn't have obligated service for the Navy, I would. But I'm gonna have to push my aspirations for a PhD to the right a couple years, at least 6 more years down the road. But if I did not have that obligation, I definitely would. Definitely good place to do it. But that's just my take on a PhD.
Highly, highly difficult to get into here at GPS. That's all I would say. I don't know much about it other than like
Very small cohort.
Yeah, and one of our classmates applied and was denied. Do you have a specific question about the PhD program?
I think like if you have to continue with how much longer you have to continue in school, for how many more years?
5?
Yeah, so yeah, you would have to still take all of the PhD classes even if you finish your master's. So you'd probably be able to waive out of some classes that you already took, but it's still kind of be the full PhD with 2 years of classes, and then you have your research and teaching afterward.
Okay, another question on MPP, and this question is more direct towards Dustin. For the energy and environmental policy track, and trying to figure out the question, but is it geared more to a global level, or bringing global solutions, and each student can apply it on a local or regional? I asked that because I'm working locally, and this is the only school here in San Diego that does public policy. So that's my kind of concern, is whether it's going to be more global focused, and it's going to be hard for me to bring it locally. And then obviously you guys can answer,
Because you have the list of classes that require that requirement, and to do that specialization, you only have to pick. has to be a minimum of 4 of those classes. There's a broad enough range that if you want to be locally focused, you can take 4 more domestic or more generally, just kind of general environmental policy classes. Or if you do want it to be more international, you can pick and choose and take those. So I absolutely, you could conceivably go to this school and treat it like a domestic politics school by picking and choosing the right classes. So yeah, I would.
Yeah, there's a couple. What is the most distinguishing factor of GPS for you? And then this one is more directed towards MPP. So why did you choose the MPP at UCSD over others?
So again, I really chose the MPP here because I wanted that mix of an MPP and the international focus. And I think there's like a school in Denver and then SICE in DC and again, come to Southern California. So those were really the big 3 factors. As far as the most distinguishing feature, I think it would be how close-knit, but also how diverse the students here are. Age range of 10 to 20 years, every kind of background, every sector, from all over the world. And there's few enough of us that you kind of get to know everyone, or you at least recognize everyone watching. I think that's a huge asset.
I would second that. We have so many international students. It's awesome to learn from different perspectives, people I would never meet on a day-to-day basis. But the most distinguishing feature by far is how quant-heavy our program is. When I was in Vietnam, a lot of my friends ended up going to East Coast policy schools, doing largely what we're doing. But when I tell them, every single class that I have has regressions in it, and we break down the regressions by by observations, by randomized control trial. We pick apart regressions on a daily basis, and a lot of the East Coast schools they're just so theory heavy, and that's what I did in undergrad, and I knew that this was more quant heavy and more application based, so that's why I chose this school. And I would say that definitely distinguishes us.
Beyond community and the quantitative side, I would say that the amount of resources that the school gives to you is a really large aspect. Like the fact that we're a quarter system, you're taking many classes and it's extremely fast paced and you've got to keep up and ask the question when you have it. But it's great that the school gives you that diversity of classes, that there are an excess of clubs and events going on. I really was drawn to the school because it was about how fast I could keep up and how much I could do. I never have a wasted moment here. There's always something going on and another way that I can push myself.
For me is 2 reasons. The first was the Department of Defense has a pretty short list of universities and international affairs programs that they consider or when they want their junior and mid-grade officers to acquire the skills that are going to keep us competitive as an organization. And UCSD, this program is very high on that list. So for me to have an opportunity to go to this university, the skills that are going to keep me successful and keep me razor sharp is something I definitely wanted to, definitely was looking for. The second one was the kind of twofold, the experience of the faculty as well as the experience of the MIA and MAS groups. The faculty is just top notch. Some of the experience that our professors have is just, you're just not going to get this anywhere else. Just thinking back from from the class I had last night with Professor Feinberg, we're going over strengths and weaknesses of the State Department, and out of nowhere, from out of thin air, he uses what we're learning and compares it to his experience to, because compares it to the experience of his negotiations with the Sandinistas. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. That's practical application right there on the spot. As well as my cohort, a lot of the, especially MAS students, a lot of them can give the faculty a run for their money. half of the incoming MAS students are, work in either NGOs in China, South Korea, or their own foreign services. So just to have that experience while I'm here, it's amazing. Taking it all in.
Yeah.
What's the overlap between like UCSD and GPS? Is does GPS have its own faculty, or it's shared, or and therefore how would the transfer to the BA and MIA track go?
He asked about faculty here and whether they're specific to GPS. So a lot of them are. Some of them teach undergrad courses. Like I know Barbara Walter teaches undergrad poli-sci courses. Who's that?
And we borrow. If you don't have a professor, Paul, I can't remember what his last name is, from economics.
We do use a lot of econ professors. A couple of the MPP core class professors are econ professors.
We also have some professors who have dual appointments on campus. So we've got a professor who has a dual appointment at Scripps and here teaches in the environmental policy and climate change area. So here she teaches more on the policy end, but she has her PhD in more engineering and science, so she's able to teach down at Scripps more on the science end as well. So not all of the professors are necessarily exclusive to GPS, but when they're teaching classes here, they all have office space here and are available then to students as well.
But I think the really, really special ones are exclusive to GPS. Right?
Victoria, this question's for you. You said that you had tried to do a Department of State internship, and then if I had this notated correctly, you're now doing the MIA focusing on international development in Latin America, is that right?
Yes, so I'm probably a confusing story. So as Brenna mentioned, I studied French in the past, and so I am...
I actually had a degree in French from UCSD as well, that's why I'm so interested in your story.
Yeah, and so as I was looking into my internships, we had a meeting with the State Department where they made recommendations for countries that we should apply to, because often what happens is that the State Department will say, okay, apply to Cameroon, apply to like other Francophone countries, and ultimately what happens is they don't even have positions available, and so you can apply and there won't be a position there. And so they recommended that I should look into Mozambique because they had readily available positions every year and a set internship program. So that's why I was focused there. I'm doing Latin America because we don't have that Francophone Africa aspect, because I'm also interested in learning Spanish. I think that it's really useful with my experience of working with the school district. I think that I'm at a big disadvantage because I didn't know Spanish. And so I was hoping to get that out of this program. Ultimately, after this, I do hope to like take the knowledge that I've learned from this program, but continue down my course of focusing on Francophone Africa.
That's actually really helpful because I'm kind of trying to decide between the MIA and the MPP, because I do want to, I did an internship in Springport 2016, right after I finished my coursework here as an undergrad with Mission France. And I'll tell you, every time that the consul would introduce me to another foreign service officer, the first thing he would say is, Dan's a student at UCSD. And everybody would say, ooh, wow. It's, this is definitely my top choice if I do decide to get a master's degree. It's just I do want to stick with the French route, so that's why I'm looking more at the MPP. Iman, do you have any kind of input on whether the MPP is?
So since you have a common pool of classes, you can, as I said, you can take whatever you want. The only difference really is your core classes can be more econ heavy than the MIA. But besides that, you don't have to suddenly switch your focus to another language in another region. And so you can kind of get around that this is a Pacific focused school if you really want to. And so yeah, I would recommend it.
All right, we'll take. Oh yeah, and then we'll take one more question, and then I'm going to stick around. I don't know if you guys have anywhere to be, but if you guys are free for a few minutes to stick around, so if anybody has more individualized questions, you can hang out. I know we've gone a little over, so I don't want to keep those of you who need to move on. But got it.
For the BA MIA path, I'm a junior here at UCSD. So would that be 2 more years, 1 more undergrad, and then extra year for the MIA programs?
It's 5 total.
And again, for if you're BA MIA, just make sure you schedule that meeting and make sure you're kind of lined up. There are some cases where you're in your 3rd year, but you need a class that's not offered, next year, and so you have to like shift things around a bit. But as long as you're on the right path, it should just be 2 more years. All right. Well, thank you all for joining today. Your contact information is in those books. I probably emailed most of you guys today with a reminder about today's session, so you'll have that there as well. So if you want to come back and sit in on a class or have an individual appointment with our admissions team, please do reach out to us, and we're happy to accommodate you. Thank you again.
Also, a few of us are going over to home plate if you want to grab a drink with us.